Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of, today is February 9th, I believe, at 8:34 for the feasibility needs study for the highway, police, and fire. So, before we get into it, I had sent out an email to the 3 different departments with just a short paragraph telling you what my objective was and with the bullet points. I probably should read it for him because if we have somebody watching, then they'll understand what I'm talking about. So I sent this out to the highway, fire, and police representatives. The objective is to provide a clear understanding of the current and future needs of these departments. Please provide an outline of the status of your department and your best estimation of future needs. If it is helpful, use the police department's presentation, whereas it captures most of what I am suggesting. The effort everyone has put in so far is very helpful, will be very helpful in the future. We are all in agreement that these 3 departments have their own challenges. Because of that, what is needed now is the factual information: building size, location, separate adjoined will come at a later date to a separate committee. Below are a few bullet points to hopefully assist everyone. Bullet points as follows: staffing per shift or shifts, office capacity, whether it's individual office or a shared office, and that's what I mean by capacity. Room, again, capacity, example, interview rooms, meeting rooms, bunk rooms, break rooms, IT rooms, etc. Dispatch space, needed, secured or unsecured. Lobby capacities, again, number of people that you would want it to accommodate comfortably. Showers, simple yes or no, as this will be calculated during the design. Vehicles, inside or outside storage, possibly under a carport. And again, that's just a suggestion, just to get everybody's thoughts going in different directions. Maintenance areas, an example, bays, rooms, etc., whether it's tool storage. Equipment storage, both inside and out. Personnel equipment and belongings storage, whether it's locker rooms or whatever, coat hook. Accessory structures if needed. I threw that in there because we know that highway has their salt and sand sheds. Specialty considerations such as life flight landing zones, and I put that on there because there's a proposal in town to use the existing field where life flight lands now for development in the very near future, so you guys are going to be challenged with that as well. Excuse me?
That's the gas station, right?
Yes, yep. If you guys are comfortable with the reports that you have with, police was pretty far along in their presentation, that's why I used them for an example. The only couple little questions that I had for them when we went through the process was like the size of their meeting rooms. Their current room holds 10 to 12 people. Comfortably jam-packed with 28 standing room only. But if there's a major event, you may have to invite, whether it's a highway, fire, whatever, to, you got papers up here too, Matt, if you want. So the room may need to be larger. You may want to take that into consideration. So then, how I see this proceeding is to take our findings of how we outline what our departments need. And if we're at that stage today, if we need more time, we can have another meeting. But if we're at that stage, then I would look for a motion to forward the findings to the Board of Selectmen so then they could process it and send it to the next step, whether it's building and facilities or wherever they choose to send it. Just to keep it moving in a productive fashion. So that's basically just my thoughts. Open it up to everybody. I guess we'll start with Kent, go around the same system that we used before, only in a rotation for no other reason, but Kent's to my left. So I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about with your department, and any
Oh,
comments,
yeah.
concerns, or anything?
Kelly did add some stuff to the presentation that before. I don't know if you want me to go through that, or...
Yeah, if you feel, yeah, you can, anything that we already covered, it probably wouldn't be necessary for us here because we're all aware of it.
All right, so let me just...
But if there's additional information that you brought, and that you have that you want to add to it, just for the record and for the public, so, and everybody here, that way, it's a joint process, so we all get to help each other and try to get to the finish line.
So, one of the things we didn't talk about when we were here, when we did our presentation, was the building is 7,400 square feet. It's just under 75, because 75 was triggers the sprinklers.
Yep.
So it's got 7,400 square feet, 3,800 square feet for vehicle storage alone. The building was built in 2000. It's got no AC. A diesel exhaust system was added. Let's see, in 2000, we started out with one full-time fire chief, 2 firefighters during the day with an admin. And then the ambulance and fire were covered on the on-call on the overnight. In 2005, we added another firefighter. 2010, we hired one more firefighter paramedic. And then in 2017, we went 24/7. So we had 24/7, so now we have one full-time chief, 7 full-time firefighters, and admin assistant. And then in 2020, late 2020, we added an assistant chief full-time. The staffing right now is 3 groups. One group has 3, a lieutenant, 2 firefighters, 2 firefighter paramedics. That's red shift. The blue shift is a lieutenant paramedic and 1 firefighter EMT. Green shift, a lieutenant and 1 firefighter EMT. And we have 23 on-call and per diem staff. The per diem staff don't live in town, so they do shifts. They don't respond back on call.
Right. If I could just interrupt you for a minute.
Yep.
Just so people understand, what is the different, you have color-coded shifts, so what does that mean? Is it?
That's just how we decide, the shifts are just color-coded. It's not shift 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C.
Because your shifts will run for 24 hours,
Right.
right?
So our shifts run where a shift will be on, whether there's always at least 1 paramedic on, because we're an advanced life support service. So there's always at least 1 paramedic. We try to do 2, that way if you get a sick call out, you know, you still have a medic to cover the shift. They work 1 24 shift on, then they go off for 24 hours, then they go on for 24 shift on, then off for 24 hours, then they go on for a third 24,
Yeah.
and then they're off for 4 days straight. So the average of a 56-hour work week, but there are some weeks they're actually working 72. It just averages out because they have 2 days work one week and 3 the other.
Yeah, so is there a way to try to explain as to what these color codes, I'm just looking at the challenge you're going to have going forward when you get to other committees or with the general public, trying to get their head around what, they'll spend more time trying to figure out what red and blue is instead of.
You could call it red, blue, green, or shift 1, 2, 3. It's just one way to designate
Yeah.
what shift is different shifts.
Just to help you, so you don't create a lot of
Yep.
distracting conversation through the process. Maybe
Call 'em A, B, and
maybe
C.
you want to call them 1, 2, and 3 or whatever.
We just let him call him his shifts what he wants to call them. It's not a big deal. It's just a designation. When you start calling things A, B, C, A is good, C is a passing grade, 1 is primo, 3 is not. This is a day-to-day operation.
Well, that's fine. Call it any color you want. Just to, not to interrupt you, Matt, but all I'm trying to do is just help you get to that point. So if you're comfortable, do it that way. That's fine.
But that's just when we went
Yep.
24s,
Yep.
that's the way we designated the groups. And there's really no real rhyme or reason through it. I think what it was it probably helped us a little bit more to differentiate on a calendar, the rotation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The rotation. Let's see here. So that's more or less how they work. The fleet, you have car one's a command vehicle, it's a 2014 Explorer. Engine one is a 1999 Pierce, it carries 1,000 gallons, and it has a 1,250 gallon per minute pump. Engine 3 is our newest engine, it's 2017 KME, carries 1,000 gallons, it pumps 1,500 gallons per minute. And that's a 2017. Engine 2 is a tanker, it's a pumper tanker, so it only has a commercial cab. Carries 2,500 gallons. And it has a 1,250 gallon per minute pump. Ladder 1 is a 2005 Pierce, carries 500 gallons a minute. It's the capacity for the pump is it pumps 1,500 gallons a minute. We have a brush truck or forestry unit. It's a skid unit that carries 200 gallons. That'll be replaced when we get the grant.
Vehicle.
Finish the
Yep.
grant. With obviously something brand new. We'll pull the skid unit off that and we'll have a pickup truck that we can carry hose in and things
Right.
like that. The Woody is a 73 AMC General. It carries 1,200 gallons. The pump's weighted at what, 208 gallons a minute? That's a 73. We also have another 5-ton that has a 1,200 gallon per minute pump, that's an 87. Same pump capacity for forestry is like 200 gallons a minute. We have one UTV, it's a 2011 Ranger, and that gets us in and out of the woods and the forests and helps us recon if there's a fire. You know, you can actually recon it, find where the fire is, and then the stage your apparatus and determine what you have. Then bring in the information, the troops. Ambulance 1 and 2 are both paramedic level ambulances. One's in 2018, one's in 2019. They're both Fords. One's a gas and one's a diesel. We also have a connector dive rescue boat. It's a 2004. That's at Cottage Street. Also, we have an inflatable boat as well, so that you don't have, if you could actually get into a river and you could get into a lake without a ramp, without a boat ramp. We have a dive trailer that houses a lot of the dive equipment. We have an antique parade truck. It's a 1935 Ford. The pump is 500 gallons a minute. And we have two utility trailers. One's the CERT and one's the Douglas Fire Association. They carry a lot of their cooking stuff that we use for Oktoberfest and whatnot. Those two are outside year-round. One of the dive trailers is outside year-round. Two of the boats are kept at Cottage Street. The rest is either outside or at the fire station. When it's brush season, the Woody and the 2.5-ton, the 5-ton tanker are both outside at the fire station. When we receive the new brush truck, that will be kept inside, and the pickup will be kept outside. We have some configuration problems in the bays. A lot of the trailers are stored outside. There's really no more room to park anything else in the fire station. So a lot of our stuff that's seasonal goes down to Cottage Street. The bay doors, they don't have a safety mechanism. There's only one that does. In other words, if the door's coming down, it doesn't have that electric eye or that eye that will stop the door so you don't hit it. So we've had a number of incidents where the door's been coming down, or people have backed into them.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Through the chair, to the chief.
Yep.
Ideally, would you like all of this equipment stored indoors?
I don't, ideally, yes. I don't really know if it's feasible to put every trailer indoors. I mean, I think the boats should be, because the weather can really beat on them as far as, it can age them a lot quicker, so they're not, like, for instance, the Zodiac boat's one of those blow-up boats, so there's laminate that if the sun beats down on it, the sun actually wrecks things worse than anything as far as covers and things like that. We've had to replace the covers on the engines a couple times to cover the hose beds.
Safe to say all of the equipment could be affected by the weather sitting?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff in the CERT trailer that's cots and blankets and things like that you want to keep the mice out of and things like that, so,
Thank you.
yep. Yeah, we have, let's see, current problems with configuration with a hose dryer and a dryer that dries gear. It's in the bay with the brush truck and along with some of the dive equipment, so it creates a, not really a good amount of space and room. Also, the same thing with, we have our compressor, which, now that I think of it, has been there since we've owned it. So, since we've been in that station, that's what we fill the air bottles with, whether it be dive bottles or whether it be SCBA bottles. So, we're storing a lot of the dive equipment in between the compressor and the air compressor. Let's see. I'm trying to move right along so I don't
Yeah.
take up a lot of
No,
it.
that's fine.
Same with the room on the sides of the trucks. We keep some of our foam, firefighting foam, and all of our stuff to wash trucks in the aisle, so it creates a space issue. Let's see. So some of the other issues is, obviously, our building's not built for 24-hour use. Majority of spaces are multi-use sleeping quarters and office space. For instance, if I stay for a storm, if I'm there all night, I pull up a cot in my office and that's where I sleep. So we have heating, cooling, ventilation, no sprinkler, electrical problems, electrical shortages, inadequate exit and egress. We went over all that. I'm just
Yes.
trying to find out what's been added here. We went over the locking systems. Those are issues. The flooring and the tiles. Let's see. We went over all that, so let me slide down a little bit more. But one of the important things is that our gear is exposed to the exhaust of the trucks, so that's not really a good situation. I think we wanted to get more or less to future needs as far as staffing.
Yep.
So, based on the probable commercial and residential development as well as increased use of the state park, we estimate increased volume for people in town, traveling through town. Anticipated call volume of 2,000 emergencies per year, plus 400 or 500 non-emergency calls by 10 years from now. Ideally, in 2025, this is just guesstimates, work group should be 1 lieutenant, 2 firefighters, and hopefully on a 42-hour work week by then. In 2027, there should be 4 on a group, a lieutenant and 3 firefighters who are medics. And a lot of it depends on, if we get these new areas in town with these buildings where all of a sudden our volume goes up because we have another additional 500 people in town with just one facility 24/7. So that's going to affect things. Let's see. So we went up to 2035, like say that's 13 years from now. And this was based on the fact that, like Nick had said, when he first started here, how many people we had. Well, when I first started, there were no firefighters. I was the first guy that started with the chief, and then one other firefighter. And then 22 years later, we now have 9 full-time people, including administrative staff. So if we looked out another 15 years, we would say that we probably need to add another 6, have 6 on a shift or 7 on a shift, 24/7. And so that would put us around 17 or 18 people. And then, we've got to think about if we add anything to the fleet. I mean, we definitely need 2 engines, so we're on capital to replace one, but we also have a tanker that's going to be, it's 22 years old, and we have a ladder that's 18 years old that are coming upon their useful life, so a lot of that's going to hit at once. And if you buy things that are bigger, like maybe a ladder that's 100 feet, you're going to have to expand where you add it.
So you have similar challenges that the police department has as far as staffing, having proper coverage. So in the event that somebody does call out, you still have to make sure you.
And that's the thing with us. I mean, he might go, okay, I got 3 on a shift, I'm going to be down to 2 cruisers or 2 officers. With us, if you lose one guy, you can't staff an ambulance. So you can
Right.
either backfill it with a basic, but most of the time, but the other problem is if it's a medic that bangs out, now you got to either force someone in or you have to bring another medic in somehow. So we already went over basically, I think those are the things you really added.
Yeah,
We talked about
yep,
the square
yep.
footage and then the anticipated needs for the future.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go
One
ahead.
question, just generally through the chief. You could pretty much say that all 12 of the items lined up in our outline today, there's insufficiencies. There's not one thing that I'm looking at here that you guys are happy with, but that you have enough space for. I think it's safe to say that the fire department has needs in all 12 departments. It seems like a blanket statement that I might be able to make for all 3 departments.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I just want to say that for the folks at home or whoever's on video watching this.
Right, and it's like with the last one being the life flight landing zone, obviously, we're not going to cover that today. I just want to keep it on the
Sure.
radar for future talks because it's a reality. We'll have to address it because we're losing that area.
Certainly.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, we had already sort of GPS the ball fields at the school where you could land an aircraft. And you know those roads are plowed year-round, so you'll have access. But you're also forced to be one side of town.
Well,
So-
not only that, I talked to the town administrator about this, and the other consideration that you need to take in is during school hours.
Right,
So you're going to have challenges with that as well.
absolutely.
So obviously, in an emergency, you have to do what you have to do, but I think long-term planning, we should try to
Think about it.
identify an area that works.
We should all meet and we should, I think to do it the right way, we should probably have 3 landing zones, one east, one central,
Right. Yeah.
one west, so you have closer, if we have 3 picked out, like you said, you have to take into consideration school in session, are the roads plowed, are these areas plowed year-round? For example,
Correct.
we couldn't pick VFW soccer field
Right.
as the landing zone central if in the middle of the winter, that's going to be full of snow, and we're not going to be able to get.
Yeah, they don't even do the driveway.
Right.
so.
And we used to have one at Breezy Picnic Grounds years
Right.
ago too, but then now, if it's the summertime, that's where they're busy, so.
Yeah, that's where it'll be important for you 3 department heads, because you all have an input into it.
Tough thing with schools is parking enforcement during the day. So Tiverton's life flight landing zone was 4 parking school right below town hall. So if parents were in the middle of pickup, we had some really bad accidents. So E24. And the helicopter lands, the ambulance can't get back to now you're wheeling the really badly injured patient, a long distance. The kids are all traumatized because it's pretty horrifying sometimes. So it's a little bit of a.
Yeah, so sometimes, that's a good point, because that's sometimes the things we forget about, because we see that stuff.
We know we go to a softball game, right? Everybody's parked on both sides of the access road, and there is no getting back.
Good point.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple.
Yes.
Is your expectation as a chief and your staff's expectations of space for rest different if you have 24-hour shifts versus 14s and 10s and 20s?
That's a good question. I'd have to really think about that. Either way, I think you need a place to sort of rest between calls and whatnot, or an area where you can. A lot of times the guys come in from the ambulance and they'll just take their surface pro and they'll go off and they'll do their report. So without a lot of distraction. But I would say, I'm not really sure that there's many places that I'm aware of that do the 10s and 14s. Is that what they do in Tiverton?
Well, Rhode Island is all 14s and 10s. You try to do a 24, you're Rhode Island.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
But the 24s are really a Midwestern combination department setup.
Mhm.
You know, common from like rural New York, Pennsylvania, and up. Not really in the Northeast this much. So I'm asking that because if I had somebody come in on a 14, well, that's your shift. You're going to sweep the station, polish the equipment, do your reports, make your runs. I don't expect you to, maybe you're going to catch some Zs in the middle of the night for 45 minutes or an hour or so, but that's your work shift. Most of us have somebody in our lives who work the night shift.
Right.
When my wife went to the NICU, you worked. You have an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, you worked. But when you're out for 24, it's a different story. So if you did 8 calls during the day, it's a super busy day for Douglas. Now it's going to get quiet, right? You're going to be able to rest for a longer period of time. And there's an expectation of that. It's built into Fair Labor Standards Act, and everything that we do with firefighters is that if you work that long rotation, there's the expectation that you should be able to rest for a fair amount of that time.
Right.
I think it changes the way we look at space.
No, absolutely. It should have a big impact on the
Another
space.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You started to do it, can you do a little bit more of it? Are there things that absolutely cannot be co-located in the fire station? So we don't want gear next to the exhaust.
Correct.
Can the compressor go just about anywhere, or is it really smarter to have it off by itself? Obviously, your narcotic storage has to be in a secure space, etc. That's kind of helpful to know, because right now
Well, I would
we're
say-
probably throwing stuff together that really isn't ideally set together.
Right. I would say the compressor, if it could be localized somewhere, and that it should be separate.
Noise.
It's a noise issue. And quite honestly, I had to get on people a little bit because they were shutting it off because, you woke me up. Well, you know what? It's a fire station. You're here to work, and, this is the way it is, But it's a necessary piece of equipment. You don't want to have to fill bottles and everything's empty because you turned it off because you don't want to get woken up, So,
Can I speak a little just on that, Jim?
Yes.
He's gonna need like chemical storage. We have gas cans, we have
Yeah.
flammable cabinets, they need to be vented, aerosol cans that they keep for, minor repairs that they do in-house. They have custodial supplies in the boiler room, and storage in the boiler room that it shouldn't be there. Things like that all have to be separated out, that should be separated out. Chemicals can't, interact with each other. You've gotta.
and I think initially we were set up that way, but
It
just
was.
as
It
as
just-
we got more stuff, we had to move things around.
You're evolved into a full-time operation that
Yeah.
requires a lot of area.
But the 10s and 14s, I would say that would change that. It would make that different. I just know that when we went 24s, it was, the union bargained it, and that's how they actually, because they wanted 24s, and they actually went with the 56-hour work week as a bargaining chip to get 24s. So, you know, we'd have to chat with them and see what their thoughts were on and something else. But you're absolutely right, it would change the dynamics quite a bit if you were just in for a 10-hour shift or a 14-hour shift. It would make things different, absolutely.
Or even 12 and 12, right? Is there a reason why?
There's nothing that limits you. There's I think there's actually a whole website out there that's firefighter schedules. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
people have modeled all these things out.
Yeah, it's an interesting
When I looked at
conversation.
it, I always thought 46s were the most efficient configuration because you're basically people working 5 and 2 or 4 and 2, almost like a nurse's schedule. But you can put more people on, especially if your officers were staggered. There's a whole conversation we can have in this group. But is there anything else about space? I know we've had issues with your exhaust system. We buy trucks and the exhaust is on the wrong side. So you either have to cut up the exhaust on the truck and move it, so the exhaust goes to the other side of the truck, which is an expense. Is it possible to have these things where they're more flexible, where you can swing the hose on either side? When we were in the academy the other day, it didn't seem that way. It seemed like you're pretty much stuck.
Yeah,
Wherever you put up those.
yeah, it's, once you run the piping and whatnot, and it's above, I mean, they're on tracks, they're not really movable. You know, it makes, and that's, like, you think, when they first put that in, the woody used to be kept inside, so there was one way up here for the woody, because the stack would come up this way. But that doesn't do us any good anymore, because we don't put the woody inside, because we've got 2 ambulances inside now, you know? So that's how things change over time.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the systems have changed. I know the highway garages we visited, they didn't have any hoses connected. They have sensors and fans, so all of a sudden it sends a CO that opens up, it regulates, there is no hoses, there's no connection of any sort. It basically opens up louver vents, fresh air comes in, they open up on their own. There is no, you're not having to worry about connecting anything.
Yeah, so they're sensing the environment,
Yeah.
and they do a complete
And-
evacuation of the airspace.
And it only, Mr. Chairman, only above each vehicle, you know, has a sensor, so everyone don't open and dump all the heat out of
Yeah,
the building.
Right.
where it needs to go.
That's what the different buildings
And
we
it's-
visited.
So it'll actually localize
Yeah.
the exhaust
That's right.
port, so it doesn't exhaust
Yep.
every single
Right.
spot.
Because otherwise you're dumping all the
That'd be
heat.
interesting to look.
That's the way that system was designed. Before the Plymouth event, it was just one big fan, it would come on if a door opened, and you just suck everything out.
We'll see how effective that is.
No, I get it, it makes no sense, I get it.
I suppose it helps a little.
I wonder what the drone footage would look like when you were doing that.
We did that this morning.
But I think you've seen that, I'm trying to think of, sometimes in the big cities, when you walk into the lobby of a big building, like a hotel, you'll hear that whoosh, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of simple,
Yep.
And that's kind of what, who had that? Did Medway or?
Berlin did, Charlton did, yeah, they had the same, it's because the garages, it's so, not tight, but, you know, it's spaced differently, so that way they gain more room between walking around, there isn't hoses and stuff.
Maybe Cumberland, you could inquire with that fire chief down there to see if they put that into that system. Because that's relatively new, right? Last year
So
or two.
that's a combined police and
Correct.
ambulance?
Yeah.
Because in Cumberland, in Rhode Island, they call it rescue,
Mm-hmm.
and they co-locate because they're dispatching almost always to the same calls.
Right.
So, but the fire stations are still the old district stations.
Oh, so they didn't, all right.
They haven't built a
Okay.
fire station.
All right.
And that's where I see a lot of those prime event stations, systems, they're added on after the fact.
Oh, Plainville did
See a lot
one.
of-
Plainville is recently.
Yeah.
but-
Is that it, chief?
The only other thing I would say is that really there needs to be like a fire prevention area where you can look at plans and
Yep. So that
Do
would
some
come under your
investigative stuff.
your
It's in-
your
it's in the-
required rooms. Yep.
It's in the
Yep.
the PowerPoint.
Yep.
That's it, really.
You're up, Adam.
Ready? I'll go. So I went just right by your bullet points, so you see the handout I have. I just went bullet point by bullet point. So our staffing per shift, 4 shifts. We only have 1 shift. It includes a superintendent and administrative assistant, a foreman, 5 employees, 2 part-time employees, and we're on call 24/7. Our offices, well, we're looking for 2 offices, one for the superintendent, one for the foreman. Which you'll see down in lobbies, that's where the administrative assistant would be, and then like a reception area, lobby. For rooms, conference room, we put for 12 people, 2 for expansion. Right now, total would be 10. IT room, it's just 1 person, a small area for that. A locker area for 12 people. The locker area, and as I've explained in our last thing, was just an area to grab your stuff, keep your personal belongings. Changing area would be in a restroom with a shower for the guys in the bays. A street sign room, to store all our street signs. Boiler room, sprinkler room, supply room, electrical room, document room where we can keep we have lots of maps that are just curled up in corners that we'd love to lay flat, put some nice cabinets out. Again, 2 office restrooms, 1 person in each. 2 garage restrooms, which would have change rooms and shower, which 1 person in each there. A kitchen and a break room for 12 people, 2 for future expansion. Lobby, again, there is our administrative assistant would have an office in like a lobby area, and just maybe for 2 people to come in. We really don't see a lot of visitors. Showers, I put yes for the 2 garage restrooms. Vehicles inside or under a carport, so I put inside would be the 4 small trucks, the 8 international 6-wheel trucks, but I put 2 for future expansion. Right now, we only have 6. A John Deere loader, a John Deere backhoe, a sidewalk tractor, a grader, our hot box, a large snow blower, the sweeper, the chipper, 2 lawnmowers. What could go under a carport or a lean-to would be our signboard, our light tower, our air compressor, 2 landscape trailers. We have 8 large plows. Again, that's 2 for expansion. 4 small plows for our small trucks, a large plow for the loader, a large snow pusher for the backhoe, a large snow pusher for the loader, a large grader plow, and a large grader wing plow. And then tailgates, a lot of times we put the sanders on, tailgates have to come off. Outside storage, we have 8 large sanders. Right now, our area is 50 by 15, so I try to put some area to it. 2 small sanders, 1 for future expansion, would be 10. Right now, one of them takes up 10 by 20. And we have a sander trailer that we basically throw our sanders on and we push them inside so we can repair it. Maintenance areas, bays, rooms, etc. 2 mechanics bays, 1 for future expansion, and a wash bay, and a chemical containment area with vented fuel cabinet. Equipment storage, both inside and outside. All I did was put the inside because most of the equipment I covered on the other stuff, but, weed whackers, hand mowers, hand tools, shovels, rakes, brooms, wheelbarrows, chainsaws, shelving like that. Personal equipment, 12 lockers, 1 for each employee. Change room was located in a restroom. In a lighted parking area for personal vehicles. We noticed that a lot of the guys, because they're on 24, come in at night and, that way you can pull in and see where you're at. Accessory structures, the current salt shed 60 by 40, so we would like to increase that if possible. A sand shed, we don't have one, but the outside pile is 60 by 50. We can reduce that down because it's spread out over, once you actually stack it up in a building, it's not going to be that wide. A fuel depot or a fuel shed, right now we have a fuel shed that we have on the back of our building. I know there's been discussions about a fuel depot. And we have 4 material bins for gravel, stone, riprap, and regrind. The current area for that is 95 feet by 35 feet. In specialty considerations, we have storage area for our pipe, which is right now is 60 by 30. Storage area for our road plates is 50 by 20. And the storage area for our catch basin, blocks, bricks, frames is 40 by 30. And that's it.
Quick question. Under maintenance, because we're on that page, under the maintenance areas, 2 mechanic bay, 1 for future expansion.
Yeah.
Is that 1 for future expansion part of the 2, or you would look for 3 bays?
It's part of the 2.
Okay.
Correct. So
Yeah.
two total, 1 right now, and then 1 if we were going to expand in the future, we'd have 2.
Okay. So that can be assumed for all the, like the
Yep,
outside
correct.
storage, the 8 large sanders?
Yep.
It actually includes the 2 for future expansion?
Currently, we have
Yep,
6.
so everything that you have for a future expansion is included
Correct.
into that calculation. As you have the conference room, the locker room, I use those 2 anyways. He says 2 for future expansion, so they carry us over the next 20 years anyways. That's all you anticipate is adding 2 people?
Well, I hope, like I said, would be 2 people, 2 trucks. I mean, our routes are pretty large, right,
Yeah.
that we have, so I think 2 would be sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's for the sanders that are stored outside,
Yeah.
is that just the sander that goes into a bed, or does that
Yeah.
include a truck?
Goes into the bed.
Okay, understood.
Now, in the future, we decide to ever change that, buy trucks with sanders that are already mounted, that does make a difference. Right now, we're kind of committed because we have, 6 trucks that all have the same sander. So it's hard to, once you deviate from that, it's great, but,
Right.
that it will change, but.
Sure.
Let's say something about that, if you would, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What is your view of what's the most efficient way to do this? So we don't do a lot of digging. So when the dump trucks aren't plowing,
Yeah.
we don't run.
No, we 1 or 2 maybe, but the others are sitting,
We do our water
Is it more
jobs.
cost effective to have sanders that are pre-mounted, or to do what you're doing now? Because you
Well-
use the stainless steel, right? You pull them up and
We
store them
are,
outside.
yeah, and I did look into that for this year's capital, but it's another $40,000 to $50,000 for the truck with the sander built into the bed.
Are they mechanically more stable, or they break down more often?
Well, to me, my initial thought is they'll break down more often because you're loading a truck and pounding stuff on top of a sander chain and what have you, then you're going to expect that to work, next fall after you've loaded stone and what have you on that, in that bed. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of those trucks. I think the maintenance will be ridiculous, but I've never owned one, so, the dealer's trying to talk me into it, but why is he trying to talk me into it? It's more money, But,
So the initial cost, the initial cost is 40 or 50,000, because you're replacing everything. And so if I understood Matt's question was, is it more cost effective, assuming that you're going to replace everything, instead of buying a dump truck that has a hydraulic dump body on it and buying a sander unit to put into the back, that combined cost is going to be a lot greater than just buying that sander truck? Is that how you were thinking
Well, I'm
about
just
that?
trying to see what they say.
Yeah.
So I'll keep parsing out, maybe you can see where I'm going,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. To get the sander bodies onto your dump trucks, you absolutely have to have them, you're using the loader?
Yeah.
Put it
We are.
on?
We
So
are.
if the loader doesn't work, we can't load up.
we're in trouble.
That's it.
Right, so you always have to have an operational loader. We can't fool around with the
No.
useful life or the mechanical
No,
abilities.
absolutely not. No, the loader we have to have one. It's huge in the snow operations and everything we do, actually.
Well, it's not just getting the sanders on the trucks.
Yeah,
You're getting salt
yeah, we got to
into
get the
the
salt
sander.
loaded is a good idea, too. Yeah.
So the 2 trucks that were just recently incapacitated, are those the ones that are up for replacement?
Yeah.
I don't know.
6 and
One is, one isn't. One's an '08, one's an '01.
All right, so I would assume that the old one is the ones up for replacement.
That's correct.
Does it make sense to entertain that thought at this point to, if you're going to replace the truck, what's the difference of buying a truck with a dump body on it versus a truck with the sander body on it, if you're not using it for any other use?
It's a conversation for
Yeah.
capital, I guess.
we can certainly look-
I'm thinking about storage, right? So
Yep.
there's a difference between
Sure.
how much space you need based on,
Unfortunately, right now, with any truck we get, we have nowhere to put it. We're at that point. Those trucks, the old ones are so, we've cut them down in the lower, we can't cut the new ones down. So it doesn't matter what we get for a truck right now, something has to go outside at this point, again.
All right, so assuming that you could get it inside.
Yeah.
By having a combined unit, you're eliminating that outside needed space for storage. So I think it might be
And
a
I can certainly look into getting a price on
a
paper.
good thought process out to Matt's comment that this is more of a capital item, but it's good information that comes out of the process.
It'd be a nightmare chain break.
That's the thing, you know? And he did tell me as your EMT,
EMT. Okay, you want to go?
I didn't hear.
EMT.
EMT needed.
I'll finish the conversation, I won't run off. But,
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've looked into some of them, and one of the trucks that had the sander built in, you have a big metal plate, and you have to slide in over the sander chain to protect it. Well, they show it only fits in this little groove. Well, once you throw rocks in it and ding it, and next thing it doesn't fit where it's supposed to, you can't
You
get
get
it
it
out.
jammed halfway in.
I saw one town hook a loader to, a chain to it, trying to pull it out, rip it out with the loader, because now
How's
it's all
that go?
dinged up. Yeah.
Does that go well for the
Yeah,
person?
you know, oh, jeez. But, yeah.
we'll fix the chain if it gets screwed up.
exactly.
We're all set with this plate.
But no, we have looked into them, John. I mean, we actually looked into, we've got some really scary roads out there, and this past couple days has brought them up, ledge stone, ledge wood. Our trucks are sideways on them, so we brought up the thing with the sanders built in the bodies was the spinners are in the front of the tires, which we really like. We really like that aspect of having that traction to go down these roads. So we've been looking into it. That's why John had that discussion, and because we're coming to that point of what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a little off track, but
Yeah, no.
it actually, I think it's helpful because you're trying to decide what you're going to be doing with this building. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Anybody have any questions for Adam? No? Everybody good? You're up.
Okay, I don't want to be repetitive, so.
Nope.
I think 2 weeks ago when I did the presentation, I walked you through every room in the police department, starting in the lobby all the way through, went through staffing, cruisers, and I would agree with Matt that I think every department on here has issues with these bullet points. So in my presentation, I went back to the end and just basically went through all of these and added them to the report that we'll forward to the selectmen.
Right.
Like I said, I don't want to take up everybody's time and go through everything again, but in a way, I feel fortunate as the police department after listening to all these presentations, because essentially, we have what we need, other than a carport to keep all the cruisers out of the, we have pretty much everything that we need in the
It's just your
PD.
physical space.
We just don't have the room. We have shared office space that, that is cramped. We have the dispatch area that is not secured like it should be, its own entity. We need to modernize. We've done a lot of upgrades. We've taken care of the floors. We've painted the building. We've done a lot of stuff cosmetically to keep it nice and clean and get us through, but we're just running out of room. And I'm at the point now, especially with the loss of reserve officers due to the police reform, I need to start the conversation with Matt and the Finance Committee about adding personnel so we can adequately staff. So over the next 5 years, where we're at now, I would look probably to try and add 2 officers over the next 5 years. And you add 2 officers, you're adding a cruiser, so that's another cruiser to the fleet. If we're still here, we'll be adding more to what we already have where we're already out of space. So for us, I think it's a space need. And as we look forward to the future, and depending on what the numbers are coming in with businesses, right now, on a 5-year plan, I would look to add 2 and another cruiser, and I think it would be safe to say, if you're going beyond that, you should probably start, if things keep up the way they are, you're probably looking at adding maybe 2 every 5 years.
Do you have, so 2 every 5 years, do you have where it would plateau out?
Well, if we're looking out,
Instead of just consistently 5 years, because we're trying to project
that
out.
would be an estimate. I mean, I think it's hard to project out even after 5 years, because I know where we're at now. Right now, I would like to be at 17.
Yep.
So I'm kicking it out over the next 5 years. I think we could easily be at 17 to be adequately staffed. Right now, we're at 15 full-time with me.
Yep.
Again, I used Blackstone as an example last night. Same population, they have a little bit more business than us. I think we have more area than they do, and they're at 17. So I think
They
that's.
have that tricky neighbor too.
Right, right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
fuck that.
so- right, but again, when I talk about staffing and we talk about it, it comes down to adequately staffing shifts. Like my 3 to 11 shift, that's my biggest concern, because sometimes I have 2 people on there, or even 3. If there's 2 people working 3 to 11 and they have an arrest, and now the prisoner needs to go to the hospital for whatever reason, so now I got 1 guy left in town, 3 to 11, now there's a domestic. So now he's by himself. So we call mutual aid, or there's an accident, and that's the way it always happens. When,
Yeah, in
you got
situations
an
you don't
arrest,
have time to wait.
ambulance just took our guy away to the hospital, so now we need a second ambulance, because our prisoner just went to the hospital, I got 1 officer, and we have a motor vehicle accident. It's just Murphy's Law. So you want to adequately staff the shifts so that they're prepared to handle whatever may happen. You might have 4 guys on a 3 to 11 shift one night, and it could be dead. But you don't know how to plan for that. You can't plan for it. So when I look at staffing, that's how I look at it, is the
Yep.
shift adequately staffed if this happens. So, but over the next 5 years, like I said, that's my immediate concern. And we can look at what's coming into Matt's office for businesses and for, residential communities, subdivisions. We can look at all of that, but I think it's hard to give a definitive number outside of 5 years.
So, other than in the offices, that really doesn't impact your physical space that much, because your management's going to use whichever the office space that you have.
Yeah, right, very.
So the impact of adding an officer, other than parking for the additional cruiser, doesn't have a big impact into
Not
the
a
space.
huge impact
Right.
right now
Yep.
with officers.
Yep.
With the office space that we have right now, we're probably overcrowded. They don't have their own officers
Yep.
or offices or anything like that. But you're right, there's very seldom is.
Yeah, and I'm
put
just
on
trying
2
to
new
think of
officers.
what our mission is here.
There's going to be a couple times a year, like you said, where we have everybody in the training room that's already
Right.
not big enough.
Right.
So, but
Yep.
we don't have 28 people in the station every day. So 2 officers, there's going to be 3 officers in the squad room instead of 2 officers
Right.
on the 3 to 11 shift. So yeah, it's not a huge impact space.
To the physical space.
It's
Yep.
more
Yep.
an impact on out in the parking lot, another car not covered under a sally port or out in the elements all the time. So until you get up to another 2 after that, or maybe even 2 more, that's when it will really affect the.
Yeah, so
It shouldn't affect the office space.
So the only consideration maybe is to maybe have an additional office for when you reach the point where you need another management personnel to have another office space. Other than that, it's just locker rooms, correct?
Yeah, locker rooms is.
Except-
1 second. Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me?
Mr. Chairman. So accept dispatch. So at some point, your call volume, you may be at that point now, you can't listen to both of you at the same time. So it
Right.
does seem like a lot of times an officer's on the road calling in plates or something, and then a fire call will come in and dispatcher's plan. Hopscotch.
Both.
At what point do you think you would need 2 active positions? And your space is too small now, so you had 2 positions to be more than double your space, right?
Yeah. And you could look at that, I mean, that.
Yeah, that's why I had put that on there, because you had brought it up in our previous.
Yeah, right now, there's not enough room in there for 2. There's 2 spaces, there's not enough room, there's 2 PSAPs in there, but there's not enough room to work comfortably with someone designated police or police and fire.
Or properly, it's not secured, it's.
Right, and it's not secure, that needs to be upgraded, but I would look at that, again, as a 5-year, 5 to 10-year plan, depending on what, like I said, comes through Matt's office, what happens with this, these projects. We're gonna see, okay, what do we get for calls for service at these places? Is fire gonna be going crazy constantly with, alarms, false alarms, smoke alarms? We get them all the time, too. We're gonna have to see how it plays out call volume wise, and it'd be a good thing to track as they come in.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a concern. The more officers you have on, and the bigger the fire department gets, the bigger the police department gets, the additional dispatcher is going to have to be considered either for 1 or 2 shifts at the very least to start off, or maybe a swing shift during the day, the busiest parts of the day. Start off slow, like anything else. Like you might need 2 dispatchers during the day and during the evening shift, or from 11 in the morning till 7 at night, and then you might be able to get away with just 1 on the overnight, but you need the room to do that comfortably.
Right. Matt? Oh,
To
sorry.
excuse myself, so I'm going to
Yep.
interrupt a little bit. I have a labor law
Yep.
webinar I have to go on.
Yep.
to Get credit for insurance and stuff. Fuel depot is the only other topic I wanted to generally discuss.
Yeah, Adam had just touched on it, that was it.
I think knowing what your volume, what your throughput would be, we would need both diesel and gasoline, the apron and the safety considerations. It'll pay for itself in about 2 years. I just wanted to throw that
Yep.
out there. This might be your last meeting, and I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it may be unless the departments feel that they need to come back. We'll have one just to do our minutes, but that'll be it.
So, thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Today's a hell day.
Go ahead, Matt, you had a question?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, then we're talking about the police station again. But you had a lot of shared space, too. Evidence from processing, he was going into a different room and stuff. So even though you have what you need now, you're still sharing a lot of space within the building.
Exactly.
One of the biggest issues, at least concerns that I had during your presentation, was you guys taking on a lot of water. And that being in the basement structurally is not going to be good over
Right.
time. Buildings built 1920, 1930.
1920, the addition was 1950.
Yeah, so ultimately, that's one of my biggest concerns that I plan to bring up with the BFCC when it gets there. So I just want to make mention of that, for the record. Those are a lot of my concerns. One other thing I want to say, it's all right, the ball's officially rolling for the large projects that are coming to town. I got an application from McIntyre Loam for his new site off Davis Street. That came in yesterday. I've heard from CRG that they're intending on bringing in their application next week to get on the March 10th agenda. That's a 1 million square foot warehouse again. So the ball's rolling now. And between Blackstone Logistics and CRG, there's 750 jobs. How many more cars on the road, stops, and all that. So it's really going to start coming over this summer and next.
No, there's a lot of moving parts as to everything that's going on in town, and I sense the urgency of the struggles that these 3 departments are having, and that's why I even brought it up to start with.
No doubt. Yep.
And I might be a little difficult at times, I'm adamant about what I want, but I'm trying to help get it to the people that need it, like talking to Ken about it, which I struck a nerve with the town administrator about the different colored shifts. Nobody knows what that means.
Yeah,
So it's not to be difficult, not to tell him to redo his system. It's just for the purpose of putting this project forward, so it's like this. I can look at it. Now, Adam understands what it means by putting 2 for future expansion. But when I look at this, well, does that mean that it's going to be 14 people, not 12 people? So it's just clarity, because it's going to go to other departments that are, other committees that have no knowledge of what we even talked about, because they probably aren't watching our particular meetings. So when we move this forward, and that would be the only thing that I would suggest that you do. You actually covered it pretty well in yours, and that's why I used you for an example to help the other 2 departments. You show what you currently have, and ideally, we would need this, or add this, or whatever. So like on yours, Adam, if you had the conference room, I would just put, because you don't have a conference room now, so I would put down that you need a conference room to handle 14 people, because it's confusing for them to look at that like that.
Yeah, okay.
The locker room area, do you have one now?
In the bay. We just have, we have.
So you don't have a locker room?
No, we have no room, it's in the bay.
Yeah, so you just have a place for them to hang their jacket or whatever. So you need a locker room that's going to handle 14 people. again, it's just for, so people can comprehend what you're putting down, your kitchen break room, your current room, what does it hold now?
6, not even, about 6, the most.
So that's what you need to put down, that you have a break room for 6 people. You really need one that will handle 14 people. Because you've been in
Yep,
the other
I
committees
understand.
that I've been involved in, and you know where I'm going with this. The 8 large plows, you currently have 2.
Yeah.
6, you're gonna need an additional 2 for a total of 8. Just so they can look at it. This is what I want, and yours is very similar to this, so I can pick this up like a menu and look at it and say, all right, I can pick through it real quick. What I don't think will be, the information's needed, but to get it across quickly, a giant presentation, you're gonna lose interest before you get through it.
I see what you're saying.
So-
Chairman, trying to eliminate the questions in advance.
Just simplify
Smooth
it,
as
so
possible.
just simplify it, so you can get to the point of where you are and where you need to go, and then as people, well, so why do you need that? That's when your presentation will pop up and say, well, this is the situation we have. We have these trucks here, we have 2 feet in between, we can't open the door and walk past it at the same time. We can't get our stuff out of the storage closet, one guy's got to go in and hand the stuff out the door to everybody. Whatever it is, and that will come through as they question you, because now you have that information because of the process we went through. But for your initial presentation, something like this is really simple. You hand it to them, this is the problems we have. Well, so why do you have that problem? Let me show you that. And then you can show it to them, and I think it'll expedite the whole process, because you guys are going to get bored if you do the same ritual each time. But if it's just, you condense it, this is where I am, here's my challenges. Well, what is that? Let me show you what that is. And you can give them the backup information because you already have it. I think that'll be quicker to expedite it, that's all.
Mr. Chair, what is the next move for this committee? We make a recommend, are we submitting our reports, what we put together, to the Board of Selectmen, or are we, do these reports go right to the Building Facilities
Yeah,
Committee?
so
and
what
then
I would do is I would just polish up these a little bit, and I'll have to talk to Ken, right? Just clarify those few little things, even with the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
They like to be able to get through it quickly, so they can look at it. They're gonna be able to absorb what you're writing down real fast. If you give them a giant, it's going to be too much. You're just not going to get through it to a meeting. But if this, Lisa will, it gets on our agenda, she forwards all this stuff to us in an email, they can look through it real quick, and when they come to the meeting, they have 2 or 3 questions for each person. We're off and running, and they make the recommendation to move it to the next step. So to answer your question, this condensed version will go to the Board of Selectmen. You already have your background information. I don't think there's any reason to burden the system with that unless they ask for it. My recommendation would be to get a motion from you guys. We vote on it to forward this to the Board of Selectmen, and then they'll turn around and they'll make their recommendation to send it to, whether it's Building and Facilities, Capital, Town Meeting, wherever it goes. It's not going to go there, but I'm just using it for an example. Most likely it's going to go to Building and Facilities, and then you'll go through this process again. I think it's going to be much easier for you when you go in with something like this, so then when they ask for backup stuff, you have it. You don't need, it doesn't have to be, it'll take too long. It'll just be a big, long process. If you have backup stuff, you can turn around. So what are we doing? All right, we can either provide it now, or we can send it to you for the next meeting. And I think it'll go pretty quick.
Right. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would it make sense just to allow the chiefs and Highway to refine these, and whether it's internally where we can go over them, you and I or whatnot, make sure they look good, come back to one more meeting, whether it's next week or the following, just say, all right, we're good, could be a 10-minute meeting, make the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm fine with doing whatever we want. I'm just trying to leave it, options open for everybody. If we feel that we're comfortable to go now, then we go. If we want to have one more meeting, and then we'll have some minutes anyways we need to go over, and then we can set it up that we can actually, there's a process about doing the last minute meeting minutes the same day.
Yeah.
I don't know what that process is, but I've heard about it. I'll find out what it is for you, Lisa.
Could I recommend that Adam share his template and just fill them in, both chiefs to their department? You guys need a week, you need 2?
A week is fine for me.
The sooner I think.
A week should be fine.
John won't be here, he's on vacation, but I'll be here.
Yeah, but I think you're pretty much there. You just have to
Touch it up, yep.
Yeah.
just touch it up a little bit, just so it's kind of, and if you're having trouble with it, take your kid and say, hey, look at this and tell me what you're reading. What do I need? And if he comes back and says, well, I don't know, you got 12 people and you need 2, that'll help you put your head around. It's hard to take yourself out of it because you know what the stuff is and try to put it to somebody that has no, I assume that people don't know anything at all, so I try to make it as clear as possible, so that's all.
Right.
Next meeting Wednesday, February 16th, 9 AM still okay?
February 6th, yeah, that's fine.
Or 8:30?
9 o'clock, because I want to give Matt a chance to get in.
Awesome. Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to adjourn?
If we have no other issues, let me just think about something for a second. We got 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're missing 3, so we're good. Okay, yeah, you can do that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Matt Benoit to adjourn, seconded by Adam Furno. All in favor? Aye.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.